time has come to tackle these upper front wishbones, control arms, call them what you want. That basically is the dog bone, banana bar that's meant to go in place so that you can cut out this section here. As you know, not overly keen on the idea. Bolts that they supply are enormous. Having cut that out, I think then we can try and, I'm just going to try and press this in. I've checked this boot and it definitely doesn't come off. It's bonded on. So I'm going to have to press it. I'll just show you what I'm talking about. I'm going to have to press the whole thing through the hole. Now I've painted the inside of this hole, and I was about to clean all of this out, but having measured it, we are very, very tight on tolerances. That's 37.5 mil. If I measure the size of this hole, it's 37.7 mil. So it is 0.2, no, get that right, 35, beg your pardon, if I measure it on the knurled part, 38.5, and the hole, it's nigh on 38. So there's half a mil difference, which means this isn't going to be, it's not going to be wobbling about, it's not going to be overly tight either, in my opinion. So if you offer up the other side where the recess is, you know. Anyway, I'm going to press it in because, and I'm not going to take any material off here, paint or otherwise, press it in using the press, and we could clean up this outside edge and then put some spot welds around it if it doesn't look overly tight. But I'm not going to do any of that until we've modified and cut up the control arm, just in case we butcher it. At which point, we'll need to work out a way of getting out the polyurethane bushings that are in the other end. I think we could do that with some threaded bar, though, and a bit of ingenuity would work something out. So, putting this where I think it goes, I've put a couple of washers on there. Don't know whether that's a good idea or not. I mean, obviously it moves up and down a bit. I think if we position it fairly centrally, to give it its best. And if you push it all the way forward, it doesn't cut much bar out. Push it all the way back, we're cutting too much bar out. So I'm going to plump for the middle. Let's take a bit of this steel writer. And basically, and I guess we're doing something like that. So if I take this off now, give you an idea of what needs doing. These are ridiculously long. I think what I might do, well, yeah, I'll put them in reverse and cut them down, so we don't need to worry about that for now, do we? But we are about to chop up a reverse arm, a control arm that's got probably 50 quid's worth of bushings in it. So we'll be getting those bushings out if necessary. So here, I guess, we just come round. I'll just show you this in a second. And all of that can go. So I think that's what we're trying to achieve here. So I think the best thing to do is to set that up in the vise, break out the angle grinder and the cutting disc, and we'll start chopping it up. So bear with me, and I'll set that up in the vise. I've got you set up pretty much where I think you can see what's going on. It's obviously going to be loud, so I think the thing to do is to get on with it, see what we're left with. Apologies, that's probably louder than a very loud thing. That's one cut done. I'm going to do pretty much the same on the other side. And then we'll see if we can't smarten it up somehow. Here we go again. Okay, you can get pretty much the gist of what I've done. There's no going back now. So, cut those out. It's a fair bit of steel in there actually, thicker than you think. Might make sense to weld some sort of plate on there. Okay, let me continue by, I think, given that I've got a white mark on there, before I put the bar on, I'm going to try and sand out or grind out a good bit of that. So, sorry about the noise. Oh, they don't work unless you plug them in. Bloody cold in here this morning. Baltic, in fact. You can see my breath, no doubt. -2 outside. There's cars getting stuck on the hill. Anyway, enough of that. Get on. Go on, my fingers are numb. Well, we're making progress. But as you can see, it leaves a kind of sharp scenario there. No reason I can't take that off, of course. I'm going to clean up the other side to about the same extent. Then we'll put the and we can put the banana bar back on and see how it looks. Get in there, let's have a quick turn on the back. Oh, my fingers are freezing. Well, that has made a start, so let's see how that looks when we put the banana bar back in place. To avoid taking too much material off, on the basis that you can take a bit more off but you can't put it back on again, I have crept up bit by bit with the grinder on these edges till I've got to that point there, which I think that's the purpose of the exercise really, as far as I can see. Obviously compare that to the originals and that middle bar has gone. Let me show you this is quite telling. When it's not in there, there's a fair bit of flex, as you would expect I suppose, in that. And I'm not overly keen on the fact that it's left this exposed bit. Suppose I could put a plate in there. Anyway, let's go with the instructions, such as they are. The build manual for the Exocet says, put engine back in car. Assemble suspension. Yeah, okay, fair enough. I suppose you are building a car, not assembling one. It's not a Lego model, is it? Anyway, stop moaning, get on with it. That looks pretty good to me. So I think that's that side done. I'm going to do, off camera, I'll do the same thing with the other side. Get these banana bolts bolted back in. I'm just wondering, is if this were to come in from that side, obviously the bolt's far too long, but if it came in from that side, and I put the nut on, I could then drill through here and lock wire it. Lock wire it to what? I could put a hole in the bottom of the plate there and lock wire the nut on. Or weld this in place is one of a number of things I can do. I suppose it'd look neater with the bolt going that way, but might be safer where the dog can see the rabbit. I'd be able to see the nut and what was going on. I'll give that some thought, but let me get it bolted up and we'll go from there. Right, after some fettling, I decided to put the bolts in that way around because I think they're less likely to foul on anything this side. And if I decide ever to go through the IVA, I think all these nuts and bolts need covers on them. But that's it in, middle section gone. So again, comparing it to that one, it's made the hole bigger. Obviously that's the whole point. Hey, the whole point, boom, boom. As I've said before, I'm not sure you can see that. That maybe could do with plating. An attack perhaps on those bolts so they're never going to come out. Maybe the same round here. But for now, I think what we'll do is try and press in this bushing, because this whole, if it doesn't work or I'm not happy with it, this whole control arm's going to go in the scrap. And then I think what we would do is make a new one. The reason we would make a new one is because there's something ridiculous like 400 quid a set on the MEV website for replacement upper front control arms. I don't think that includes the bushing. Anyway, I don't think we need to worry about that. We have the wherewithal to make them if we need to, because at the factory, rather than here at the workshop, we are making wishbones anyway, control arms anyway, for the V2. For those of you who don't know what I'm talking about, go back and watch the first episode of the Humble Nomad Automotive YouTube channel. If you can see through the steamy breath this morning. Because that will explain all about building cars, in particular prototypes, and what we're up to. This Exocet build is just an exercise in learning the trade, really, I suppose. So if this turns out to be junk, or I'm not happy with it, or it's not strong enough, we will find a solution. The next thing to do is to press. These weren't expensive. These are about 10, 15 quid a piece. So I think it's worth, for that price, pressing them in to there, as like so. See, that's pretty much halfway in already, look. So I'm not convinced of how tight they're going to be. But once they're in, we could, as I say, grind away the paint from there and spot weld those in, as we could spot weld these and everything else. And I suppose then that would give us a fairly sound, tight control arm. Anyway, let's get out the hydraulic press, which I got a bargain from a closing down garage. In fact, most, if not all, of the tools in here I've picked up over the years on the cheap, so nothing's cost me a fortune. But let's see if we can't press that in using the press. However, looking at how easily that's just gone in, let me just grab a rubber mallet or dead blow hammer, or both, and let's see what, without damaging it, how easy that's going to be to press in. Of course, the easier it is to press in, the more concerned I'll be about its rigidity once in. Well, that's going in fairly simply, isn't it? Just carry on with that process. Don't know how much of that you can see, but it's going in and going through, which is a bit of a worry. Let's see if you can see the edge of the table. Yes, you can. Let's continue. Let's continue. Yeah, it's going in and going in straight, I think. So we're on our way, and I guess with the vise and a big enough socket, we could press that home. Actually, let's try that rather than getting the press out. Let me turn you round. We can always edit this gap of me turning you if it turns out to be a terrible part of the video. But let's try that. We'd need a big socket. That, I think, constitutes a big socket. If I put that on there, and that on there, and that on there, I think it's going to just wind it straight in. Yeah, move it round a bit so it's going in evenly, I think. It's certainly going in. We're not getting the thing stuck, no. That all looks good. That all looks good. Let's just keep going. No, it's going in. That all looks good. Not a problem anywhere. No. Looks to be working for the time being. It's pushed the rubber gaiter through without any damage. Again, let's put that back there. Keep going. And we're in. Turn it round. Have a go at it from a few different angles. Slight problem. Let's have a look. We can get there. Oh my word. That's all right. Poor bit of a panic. We're learning. What are we learning? Let's not worry about what we're learning. So that's in and hasn't damaged the boot or anything else. Significantly better than the state it was in when it came out. I'm just going to get an ordinary hammer. See if I can't tap. We sure that's... Well, that is now seated very neatly all the way around, and that's what I meant. We could always take that paint off, and boot's fine underneath. Look, we could always take that paint off and spot weld. 4 spot welds there. Spot weld the bolts up, maybe even the nuts. Bushings are in. By George, I think we're there, you know. So all that remains to be done now is for me to repeat that exercise on the other side. You don't need to watch that though, so bear with me, and I'll show you the 2 finished items. Slight change of plan. It occurred to me before I manufacture the second upper control arm, which does of course need a lick of paint now, it would be worth trying on the vehicle to make sure it fits before I go to the trouble of designing, before I go to the trouble of manufacturing the other one. Just wanted to show you here, I've spun onto the steering rack the new track rod ends, which if I hold that there, I'm just going to nip those up now. Nothing permanent, but we've got 1, 2, soon to have 3 brand new ball joints. So I think what we'll do is drop this bottom bolt out, offer this up, put the hub in place temporarily, and see if we can't get it all to fit without fouling. So without further ado, let's get this out. Again, nothing permanent. In and out, in and out. Right, so let's have that off. We should be able to drop that out, drop that down, pop this in. So we're going to need the long bolt, which is still larruped in a combination of ACF 50 and anti-seize. Up and under. Did we decide this needs to go in from the front or the back? I think we decided it needed to go in from the back because it fouls on the framework at the front. So we're in. Big washer. Again, finger tight, this is temporary. So it's resting on. Looks like there's a fair bit of room there now. And that's not really in position yet, so let's not count our chickens. Right, let's have this back. Hoppa! Working on the basis that we're going from the front to the back to give the nut a little bit of protection from the weather. There we are, we're in. Nuts on. Nuts on, nuts on. Change the drive on this. So this would be, looks like it's going to work fine. There's thousands of people built Exocets before me and it's been fine, so why I would think it's not fine, I don't know. Nipped up but not permanent. So in theory, we're in at the top, we're in at the bottom. Control arms are on. That appears, till it whacks that, which I don't suppose it's going to do on a regular basis, we're okay. And we have 3 brand new ball joints. So the sensible thing to do now, this is the original hub. It needs a new nut because I mullered it. Well, it's not too bad, but it needs a new nut. I've taken the studs out because I wasn't sure whether I'd need longer studs for different types of wheel. You know, longer studs because it's more of an offset, less of an offset, I don't know. For the time being at least, let's try and pop this on and see how we look. So we've got the bottom castle nut can come off. So if we do these in order, so we know which order they go back on again. Bottom castle nut, top castle nut. Let's pull that out. Top castle nut. And track rod end castle nut. To the front or the left. So that's those. So this should then go, in theory, on there, and on there, and up there. Right, so let's put these on, albeit loosely. Track rod end. Bottom castle nut. I think they might actually be different sizes. Top castle nut. By Jove! I think we've got it. So, difficult to tell now whether that's going to foul or not. It isn't going to foul, I don't think. And the spring is clear of the back of the frame there. Let me just go around the back here and turn that steering. Look at that. So, we've got a bit of a wiggle on. looks like it's all working. So that's enough confidence for me to put these things aside for now. And what's moving? Oh, that's not tightened up, of course. Yeah, so I think that's enough of a reason to press on and continue with the other upper control arm. While I'm down here, I've moved the camera angle slightly. I am surrounded by these. I also bought these as part of the kit. I think they were 120 quid for 4, I think. What does that make them? 30, 40 quid, 30 quid each? 120 quid plus the VAT. Who knows? I might be doing him an injustice there. They could have been slightly cheaper. Not the prettiest things in the world, but they are mudguard stays. Now, I think I read somewhere, and I'll go inside and do my research, but before we get much further, I know this is all temporary, before we get much further, I think these go on in or behind the hub somewhere. Obviously, the mudguard stay's got to be at the top, but I think what he's talking about there is being in behind that bracket. So we've caught it early, and these will need painting and installing before the hub goes in place, or the upright goes in place permanently. Or will they? Because if this is going to be a track car, and I'm going to use it on the track, you could argue that that grease on there is gloopy. Stop getting distracted, Paul. You could argue that there's no need for the mudguards, although I'll have to check somewhere like Cadwell's Guide to Track Days and just make sure that they don't insist on mudguards. Probably helps, stops you flicking stones and broken washers at the guy behind, doesn't it? So it might do. Anyway, just wanted to show you those. As I say, they'll need, I don't know which one goes on the front, which one goes on the back, but there's 4, so it should be fairly easy to work out. Might need some fettling before we get any further, but let's, off camera, I will press on with the other top wishbone, and we're making progress. Brief update. I have checked 2 things. The Cadwell Park MSV website and the Exocet Builders Facebook forum. 2 things to report. Number 1, open wheel and single seat race cars are not allowed on track days as a norm at any of the MSV tracks, certainly not at Cadwell. So mudguards, fenders, depending on which part of the planet you're from, are required. Therefore, a fender stay is required in my case. Now, the bracket, there are 3 holes here. Holes here. What was that from? With nail and eye, blimey, going back a bit. Okay, 3 holes. They line up fine with this metal bracket. So with a metal bracket here. And it's kind of designed in a sensible way in that side of the bracket then hits that notch. The problem being that these stays, this 10mm, what looks like 10mm bar, then fouls on the top of the upper wishbone. Now I know you're building a car, not not assembling one not putting it together like an IKEA piece of furniture, but if you're buying that from a kit car supplier, I'd have rather bought the plate and been supplied with a metre of 10mm bar and had to fettle it myself, which is what I'm going to have to do anyway. So, anyway, 2 pieces of research. Number 1, MSV, Cadwell and all their other tracks do require mudguards, fenders. Number 2, having checked on the Exocet Builders website, Builders Forum on Facebook, I'm not the only one to find this problem. The smart money says don't start hacking even more bits off your top wishbone. The thing to do is to modify this, which basically means that the bend's in the wrong place. I wouldn't say it's useless, but it's going to need some fettling. Probably not a bad thing, given that we can then tackle some of those ugly welds. So there's the update. But if it fitted, which it doesn't, it would go like that. Not foul the top, then the hub goes on gently there like that, and it fits in behind the hub. The bolts will have to be fairly flush, which also gives me the opportunity, I guess, to countersink these holes. Yeah, things like that I don't mind. Countersink the holes and put in some hex bolts, maybe with a countersink, so that they sit flush. Yeah, it would have been easier to buy it just as a bracket, I think, and a piece of rod. Anyway, there we are. That's your update. I will get on with the other wishbone and stop moaning. So there you have it. That's pretty much the front end rebuilt at the moment. Obviously can't fit the mudguard stays for obvious reasons, they don't fit. But steering rack's in, the bolts are clean, neat. Track rod ends, all three new ones are on. That top wishbone now, having worked, needs a lick of paint. You can see right in there, look. There's clearance on that top frame, and I could take a bit more out of there. That's the mounting bracket, so it wouldn't be a bad thing. I think when I take this off and paint it, I could put an arch or a curve in there just to come round that. There's several things will need a lick of paint. Actually, that cast upright is not going to stay looking like that unless I give it a lick of paint, so the same black chassis paint. This side's done pretty much exactly the same, well, exactly the same as the other side. So that would now, in theory, if I put the studs, which are down there, put the wheel studs back in the hub or the upright, we're not a million miles away at the front end to a rolling chassis. Just go around the back. This, I popped in the Bilstein shock temporarily just to hold up the two suspension arms, but this is our next step to turn our attentions to the back. There's drive shafts there that need work. Two more rear mudguard stays which will need assessing. That's the rear driver's right hand side back box of bits for this bit. So plenty to be getting on with. But I am absolutely frozen to death, so it's time, so top off, to bugger off and have a beer, I think. So I shall leave it there. Please click the like button, subscribe for more content of this nature. Join me again on the next one.